Hello, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use arrays in JavaScript and the different array methods that you should know. Let's begin now. Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to guide you on all the methods that are important when you're dealing with arrays in JavaScript. By the end of this video, you should learn something new about methods used to manipulate arrays in JavaScript. Let's begin now. The best place to begin learning array methods in JavaScript is, of course, on the console. Arrays are objects, and you can use the object prototype to learn about all the available methods for these arrays. Before we look at how each of these methods works, I'd like to just begin by helping you learn about object prototypes and how you can use it to just look at an array and get the method. So let's begin now. I'd like to begin just creating a simple array. So we define array using the const keyword because that's the right keyword to define something that you do not want to redeclare again. Arrays and objects are data types you don't want to redeclare them again, unlike variables where you use the other keywords like let and var. So we just write const, then we can define an array of fruits. We define it using the square brackets. Then we pass in the elements of this array like apple, orange, then mango. So this array has three elements. I would like to introduce the concept of prototype. Since arrays are objects, it's important to remember or to know that every object has a prototype property, and this property is inbuilt, and we can access it using the syntax object.getPrototype of, then we pass the object. So that's how we access that object prototype. So the reason why learning about arrays and array methods, you need to learn to remember about object prototype is you can get all those methods. You don't have to memorize these methods. You can always get them on the console, as I mentioned. So I would like to create a constant here to demonstrate what I mean. Then I'll call it fruits prototype, which will be equal to, then I get the object dot, then I use the method get prototype, then I pass in the fruit, these fruits. So what this will do, it will give us a prototype of this object. So I'd like to log this. Then we're going to see all the available methods for that particular object. As you can see on the console here, I have an array, and this array, if I click on this, I'll open up and I can see all the available methods that include at, which is a function, concat, which is a function that joins. Then all these functions that we're going to talk about in this video are here: join, indexOf, forEach, flat map, and pop, push, reduceRight, reverse, shift, slice, splice, reverse to string. If this was a string, we would have different kinds of methods here. Let me turn this to a string. So I would like to comment out this up to that point, then get rid of this bracket, which gives us a string. And now we have a string here that has all these methods, like one of the most popular to lowercase and to uppercase string methods. So we can also get the prototype for a string. Then I would like to turn this to an object. So I'll add the curly brackets, then give it a key, which can be first fruit. I've turned this to an object, so, and I'm still logging to get the prototype. So it gives me an object and it has all those methods. So simply, looking at the prototype will always get you these methods. You don't have to memorize like which are the methods for these array, and how do you manipulate this array using which method. So you can always like look up the data type and remember there is push, there is and unshift, concat, join, and so on and so forth. Now let's get into the methods of manipulating arrays in JavaScript. I'd like to still use the same array. I'll copy it and get rid of this text. This is the first one, push. Push allows us to add, like if you'd like to add something to this array, I'd like to remove this mango. I can add to the end. I can add it to the end. If we have this array here, then we would like to add something to the end. We use push. So this is how it works. So fruits.push, then I give it the value. You can log this, and now we have it with mango. What if we get rid of this? It has 2 elements, but now we are using the push method. So you pick this fruits.push, then you put in the mango or the new item that you'd like. This is supposed to have a closing colon. So the second one is pop. Pop removes the last and returns. So the second is pop. So I'd like to have this array. Then I want to add an extra one, which is mangle. Then I want to run the pop method. So const removed fruit. Suppose we want to remove, we intend to remove this last one and return it. This will be equal to fruits dot pop. Then we log this, and it's mango. So it has picked this array and removed the last one and returned it and given us the value of the last item in this array that has been removed. The third method is unshift. And unshift adds one or more items at the beginning of the array. So in this example, I have this array with 2 elements, apple and orange, or I can just have it with 1 element, which is apple. Then I can do something like const new length, or what's the new fruits dot and shift. Then we pass in what we would like to add. So that's what we would like to add. And once we log it, we have the 2, the 2 added to that. If we don't have this, if we don't have this and shift method, we only have 1 item in this array fruits. So we use fruits.unshift to add 2 more items at the beginning of this array, the orange and mango. So that's how unshift work. This is the third. The next is shift. So what shift method does, shift, it removes and returns the first element. So if we have this array, I'll just copy this. This is the 4th. Then we have, this should be fruit. If we have it, we would like to get this and return. So what you do const first element equal to fruits dot shift. Then we can log the first element, and we have orange. So shifts allow us to grab the first element of this array and return it. The 4th method is concat. The 5th, this should be the 5th, is concat. Think we can separate this using that, so that we can easily move back and look at each of them. So this is the 5th, concat. So what it does, it combines one or more arrays. So again, if I have this array here, then I'll call this sweet fruits. Then I have another array. This should be camel case. Have another array, then you can call them good fruits. Then we have apple, and in here we have cherry. So if we have these two arrays, we can combine this array using the concat method. We can create a combined fruits array, which will be equal to the first array, sweet fruits, then dot concat. We want to concatenate, what a word. So we want to put these arrays together. Then we have now we have the new array, combined fruits array. Then we have this array with all that. So the concat is a useful method when you want to combine two or more arrays. The sixth is join separator. I would call it a separator. So this is to join elements of an array to a string. For example, if we have this array, I want to get hold of this, then we need to close that. Then we can use the join fruit string. We can now create a string of fruits, which will be equal to fruits dot join. Then we give it a comma, then we close this. Now we have a string. We have a string of all the elements of this array. Like we have a string of orange, mango, apple, as you can see it here. So that's join. The other array method is slice. This should be 7. So we get this array again. And slice allows us to return a new array with a portion of the original array. So we can do something like const sliced fruits will be equal to, then fruits dot slice, then we give it the positions 1 and 3. Then let's log this and see. It gives us mango and apple. So the other method is splice. Let's create a new array which will be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if we'd like to remove some of these numbers from a specific index, so we can do const remove numbers will be equal to numbers dot splice. Then we give maybe index of 2 and 2. The index of 2, so this 0, 1, 2, then we remove 2 elements. So we would like to count. Remember, in JavaScript, there are zero-based index. So arrays are zero-based index. So we begin from 0, then 1, 2. Then, so this is the index 2. So in this array, we're going to remove 3 and 4. We can numbers again, and it has removed these 2 elements. Then we can also see the removed elements by just logging that. So we removed 3 and 4. So that's splice. The other one is reverse. Reverse reverses the order of elements in an array. So we'll use this, then we'll just copy that, then comment out this. Then this should be 9 reverse. So reverse, what it does, it just reverses the array. Reverse numbers, so numbers dot reverse. Then numbers dot reverse. Then we log this, and it reverses the order from 5 backward. Then the other array method is sort. This should be 10. Sort. Sort is used to sort numbers, and optionally sometimes you can use it using a compare function. So suppose we have we just use numbers. Then this array has different kinds of numbers. We can say 4, then we mix them up, or 3, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 1. Suppose we have such kind of an array, then we would like to sort it. So numbers will be equal to numbers dot sort. Then now in the sort function, we need to give it like, let's reduce, to make it easier, let's reduce this, let's remove that, and we'll remove this, then we make this 2 to make it easier. So in this sort, we need to give it the order, and we can now do A, B, then A to B. Then let's log this. And now we have the array sorted in order. So the other method is the indexOf. IndexOf allows us to return the index of a specific element. So I would like to grab this fruits array here. Then I do const index. Then I do fruits dot index of. So suppose I would like to get the index of apple. So I'll pass it here and then log that index to find what's the index of that, and we can see the index of apple is 2. Remember that these arrays in JavaScript are 0 index, so this is index of, and this should be 11th. Then the last index of gives us, if you have an array with 2 similar items. So suppose we have this array, and this should be the 12th method, which is last index of. So suppose we have that. I'd like to get these as well. We can just get all this to save time. We can call this last index. So suppose we add an extra element on this array, and we just name it to mango. So we have this array that has orange, mango, apple, and mango again. So we can do the last index of in this way. Last fruits dot last index of. Instead of apple, we want to find the last index of mango. Then we log this last index, and the last index of apple is 3. Then I think this should be the 12th. The next method is filter. Let's create more of this to make it easier for us to save time. So the other one is going to be filter. This should be 13th. So what filter does, it creates a new array with elements that pass a specific function test. Let's work with numbers. We can get this. We can copy that. Then comment out. We have this array numbers. This array of numbers, we can now find which are the even numbers here. So we can create now, get rid of this. Then we can create a new array. We call it a new constant. We call it even numbers. And we understand what even and odd numbers are. It's a number that's going to be divisible by 2, and like in this case, we can tell which numbers are. Then we can do numbers. Then we're going to pass in a function here, dot filter. Then we pass a function. Let me move here so that it's more visible. Then I'm going to num as an abbreviation of number, then divided by 2, remainder. Then we look at the modulus of the remainder of 2 should be strictly equal to 0. So then it should be filter numbers dot filter. There's something that we're missing here. So numbers dot filter, then this should be in bracket. So let's see. So once we log, we should get the even numbers, which are 2 and 4. So let's see. We get 2 and 4. We are going to repurpose this function. This is a call function. We can repurpose it to explain the other methods. The other method is map. This should be 14th. Map, what it does, it returns or it creates a new array from results that results of calling a function on each of the elements. If we have these numbers array, you cannot redeclare a constant. That's why it's causing that notice. So then we would like to create a function that calls each and every one of these, and then it does something. So what we would do, we would create the best thing I think we can work with here is squares. I like squares. Square numbers. Then this would be numbers, this array. We want to square the numbers dot map. Then I want to move this to a new line, then we'll move it back. So number, the abbreviation of number, arrow function, arrow symbol, then number, then it should be to the raised to the power of 2. This raises it to the power of 2. That's what that's supposed to mean. Then each and every one of these numbers needs to be squared. So let's just call this squared numbers. That's how we would use the map method. I'd like to log this, and we have the square of 1, 2, 3, 9, 16, and 25 logged on the console. Then I'd like to repurpose this for the next function, which is every. Every also takes a callback. This one takes a callback, as well as this filter map callback. Then every, which is position 15, also takes a callback. Every checks if all the elements, they have to be all elements, pass a specific test. Again, I'll repurpose that array. Then I need to comment out this. Here we need to, let's get rid of this. These numbers, we can change this to like even numbers. 2 is supposed to be 4, 6, and 8. Then we're going to define a constant here. We want to test if all are even numbers. This should be equal to numbers dot every. We are going to check every number. Again, we repurpose what I had on top here, this function. So we repurpose that. We are checking if every number is even in this array. Then we need to log that, and you can see the result. It's true. So if we change this to, we add a number which is 7, which is not even, and save, it returns false because that is not even an even number. The other method is sum. Sum is similar to the every, but it's going to test if at least one of them is, if at least one of the elements of the array passes the test by the function. Again, I have this number, then I'll just add a 9 here, which we know is not even. Then we'll still repurpose this even, all even numbers. Then instead of having every here, we use sum. We would like to test if all elements, at least, the idea of sum is it checks at least one of these has to obey that function or that test. Again, everything looks good, then we log, and that's true, at least one. What if we have numbers that are not even, like we can do 3, 5, 7, and it's going to return false because none of them. But if we just introduce a 2 here, it's going to return true because at least one is an even number. That's how we use sum. This should be sum. The next is reduce. This should be 16. Reduce. Then we will look at reduce goes along with reduceRight. So this will be 17. This is 16. No, this is 16. Then this is 17. Then this is going to be 18. So reduce, it allows us to create a sum of numbers in an array. So for example, if you have an array of scores in a game, which is equal to 2, 4, 8, 10, and we can add an extra one in between here, 6. Simply what reduce does, it takes the first, think of it like something that's looping. So it takes the first number, then adds it to the second, then that becomes 6. Then it moves to the third, adds it, it becomes 12. Then it moves to the fourth, which is 8. 8 by 12 is 20. Then it moves to the last part, which is takes the accumulated value, adds it to the current value. How we do this is we can create a constant here. Then this is sum will be equal to scores dot reduce. Reduce is going to be a function. Then I pass in here a function, open in a new line. This function has two parameter, accumulator and the current value. Then this function can return the sum of the accumulated value. It's simply copy this. It's going to return that plus the current value. Then you need to the current value. We are taking the number, the current value, adding it to this one, then we have an accumulated value, then passing on to the next, doing the same thing. Then we need to close that. We need to add a comma here and pass a 0. Then if you console.log this sum, it should give us 30. Then there's something else logging as true in the console. This is still not. So what simply this does, it takes the first number, adds it to this, then that, adds it to this, then and such a manner. So for reduce to write is the same thing, but I think the best way to explain reduce to write is using a string. A string would do better. So let's do a const. Suppose we want to create some kind of reverse kind of encrypted message. Reduce write would do, because it does the same thing that reduce does, but now from the other side, right to left. So we can create a message. Then this message, we simply use the most common. So we can just do hello. We split this message into two. World. Then since it's going to be a string, since it's going to give us back a string, we can add a space here, an empty string. We can add an empty string. So we have an empty string here. And let me try to console log this. We see if it does make sense. Yeah, we have an array. It's okay. So we have it working. Now we can use reduce write by doing something like const first message. Maybe we are trying to do some cool stuff. So we can take in the message, then we do dot reduce, we move it to a new reduce message dot reduce write. Then it's of course going to take in two parameters, the same parameters like this. It's going to take in this function just as it is. Reduce write, then we have a function here. Now this function, this should have a closing curly bracket. And you need to close this. It takes the first, then it adds to this, the second, then but now in this sense, it's going to start from the right, then it adds to this, then it adds to that. So it's going to take world, adds to space, then adds to hello. Then we can do a return and just return that the accumulated value plus the current value. Then I would like to take this to the right position. It needs to be there. Hope this works. So we now need to log this. Yes, and that's what it does. So it reverses that string. Reduce write changes the works the same way as reduce, but now it works from right to left. The reason I used a string is that would be more practical as opposed to using numbers. There's no way we would easily demonstrate how it works. So the other method is find. Find, this should be 18, should be 19. This returns the first element of a specific test for an array. So suppose we have an array of numbers 9. Then I'd like us to repurpose the previous code. So let me comment out this. So the test is we can test for the first even. So we are going to look for the first even number, then we return it. Then we change this to find. And the find, let's do 2, finds 2. That's the first it has found. We can have a 4 here, and it will still give us 2, since that's the first element that it has found. Swap these two 4 and 2, then it's going to give us 4, since that's the first element that satisfies the test of is this an even number. So that's how find works. The other array method is findIndex. FindIndex returns the index of the first element in an array that satisfies a condition. So it's similar to this, but now it's findIndex. Comment out that this should be 20. So this 20 still have the same array, but now we are going to change this to findIndex, and it's supposed to give us the first element index of the first element. So the index of the first element that satisfies that condition is 2. Remember, arrays in JavaScript are zero based. So the first is that satisfies this condition is 4, and we are counting from 0, 1, 2. So the index is. The other method is forEach. ForEach allows us to loop through. This is 21. It allows us to loop through and find and iterate through an array. So suppose we have still this array, then we can do something like numbers dot for each. Then the for each takes in a function. Then this function we can pass in an element. Then this element can be console logged. So we are looping through all this, then logging in the console. That's how for each works. So we are going to log the result of the element. So we are going to log the element, and we have the elements of that array logged. You can change the first to 33 and it changes. So that's what for each does. It loops through iterable objects, including arrays and maps, along with other objects. The other method is from. So this should be the 22nd. From creates a new array, or from an iterable object, like we can take a string and we create an array. So this should be from. Again, we comment out this. Then I would like us to create a new array. Suppose we have a message equal to hello. We just have a simple string, which is a message that's equal to hello. So we can create a new constant here to get the characters, which will be equal to. Now we tap into the array constructor that is available. Then the from method. Now here is our from method. We are tapping into the array constructor. Then from. Then we pass in our string, and our string is a message. So we pass in our string here. Then we can log this on the console and see what happens. And we have an array from the strings of this, from the characters of this string. So from what it does is it creates an array from an iterable object. Like in this example, I used a string to create an array from it. Then I tapped on the array constructor method. Then the from method will split up that string. So now we move to the last one. The last one is fill. What fill does, it changes every element in the array with a new value. This is 23 fill. Suppose we have this array, then has numbers, random numbers. So that's a simple array. Then we can do numbers dot fill. Then this fill, we pass in the values we'd like to fill with. Suppose we just fill it with 0. See what happens. Then we display that, and we have an array filled with 0. You can change this to 5, and we have an array filled with the same element. So that's it for this tutorial on 23 array methods for 2023. I hope you find this useful, and if you did and you appreciate the effort, kindly do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you. I hope by the end of this video, you've learned something new about using arrays in JavaScript and the different array methods. If you did, kindly consider giving this video a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.